Don't ask Reese to chip in. She can barely afford her own groceries. The table erupted in laughter. I sat there, fork in my hand, completely still. My aunts, my cousins, my mother, smiling like she'd just said the funniest thing in the room. Someone near the end of the table whispered, "She always was the struggling one." I heard it. I was supposed to hear it. What none of them knew was that I had checked my bank account that same morning. My name is Reese Calloway. I'm 34 years old, and this is the story of the day my family finally found out who I really was. I grew up the middle child in a loud, image-obsessed family in Atlanta. My mother raised us to care about appearances, what people thought of us at church, what relatives said at cookouts, who was doing better than whom. My older sister had the degree, my younger brother had the business, and me? I was just Reese, the quiet one, the one nobody introduced first, the one who never got the toast at Christmas. I didn't have a flashy job title. I worked remotely, mostly from my home office, in leggings and a hoodie. No corner office, no company car. When family asked what I did, I kept it vague. Content work, online stuff, and they'd nod politely and change the subject. They assumed I was scraping by. They never asked enough questions to find out otherwise. I wasn't the one my mother bragged about at church, but what I'd built in silence, she couldn't have dreamed it. If you've ever been the one at the table that nobody takes seriously, the one whose voice gets talked over, whose wins nobody asks about, subscribe to this channel right now. Have you ever sat quietly at a family table knowing something they don't? Because I have, and I want to hear your story. Drop a comment below and let me know you're here. Let's go. My mother's 60th birthday dinner was held at my sister Dana's house. Big house, long table, every aunt, uncle, and cousin you could imagine packed into that dining room. The smell of catered food filled the whole house. Expensive, warm, the kind of dinner that announces itself before you walk through the door. It was supposed to be a celebration, and for most of the people there, it was. After the main course, my mother stood up to give a little speech. She was glowing. She started talking about family, about legacy, about how proud she was of the people around that table. Then she started naming names. My sister Dana, who'd just expanded her real estate portfolio. My brother Kendall, whose landscaping company had just signed a city contract. She talked about them like they were trophies. Her voice was warm, full, proud. Then she looked at me. "Reese, baby, we love you." She paused, a small smile. "But you haven't exactly made us proud financially." My aunt nodded. A cousin near the end of the table laughed a little, not loud, but enough. Nobody said a word in my defense. Not one person at that table pushed back. I felt the heat rise in my face, but I kept my expression flat. I picked up my water glass and took a slow sip. Then my mother said, "Actually, we're a little short on the catering bill. I hate to ask, but Reese, could you Venmo me $200? Even if it's all you've got right now, it'll show you're trying." The whole table heard it. I opened my phone. I sent the $200 without a word. I put my phone face down on the table and picked up my fork. But something shifted in me in that moment. Something quiet and cold and completely certain. That was the moment I decided they were going to find out exactly who I was. The months that followed made everything worse. Not in loud, obvious ways, in small, deliberate ones. The kind that are almost harder to explain because each one alone sounds minor, but together they painted a very clear picture. About 6 weeks after the birthday dinner, I noticed something. My family had a group chat. It had been active for a while. Birthday reminders, family announcements, the usual. I was in it. But then a cousin sent me an accidental text, a message meant for the group, a full vacation itinerary, a beach trip, 6 days, a rental house with enough rooms for everyone. I hadn't been told about it. I texted my mother directly, asked about the trip. She took 2 hours to respond. When she did, she wrote, "We didn't think you could afford it, and we didn't want the awkwardness." That was the whole message. No apology, no offer to include me going forward, just a quiet assumption stated plainly, like it was practical. I read it twice, then I saved it to a folder I'd started keeping on my phone. A few months later, I went to Dana's daughter's graduation party. I smiled, brought a gift, made small talk. At some point during the evening, my mother pulled me over to introduce me to one of her old friends from her church group, a woman named Patricia, who'd apparently done very well for herself in property management. "This is my daughter, Reese." Then, with that same small smile I was getting used to, "She's still trying to figure things out." Patricia gave me the look, the soft, slightly pitying one, the bless your heart look. She smiled at me like I was a teenager who just announced I wanted to be an artist. I smiled back. I said it was nice to meet her, and I said nothing else. The third thing happened privately, which somehow made it worse. My mother called me on a Tuesday night. Her voice was different, softer, a little careful. She said she needed help covering some bills, just temporarily, and she needed $1,500. Then she said this: "Your sister needed help once, and I gave it without question. I just need to know you're capable of doing the same." Guilt wrapped inside a test. I recognized it for exactly what it was. I sent the money, but before I closed the call, I hit record. Every insult, every exclusion, every quiet little moment designed to remind me of my place. They thought they were shrinking me. They were actually building my case. Here is what my family did not know. For the past 4 years, I had been running an anonymous personal finance channel online. No face, no name, just a voice, a camera, and an obsession with financial literacy that I had turned into something no one in my family could have imagined. I had 1.4 million subscribers. I had partnered with some of the biggest financial brands in the country. In the last 18 months alone, my channel had generated $3.2 million in brand revenue. The daughter they called broke had been quietly teaching hundreds of thousands of people how to build wealth from nothing. The morning after my mother's birthday dinner, the morning after she asked me for $200 in front of 60 people, I opened my banking app. The balance on the screen was $3,847,612. I took a screenshot, I closed my laptop and made coffee. I had a brand partnership negotiation scheduled for the next week, a major one. I wasn't worried about it. I wasn't hiding because I was ashamed. I was waiting for the right moment to let the truth speak for itself. There was one person who knew everything. Her name was Loretta. She was 52 years old, a former Wall Street analyst who had built and sold 2 financial media companies before she became a content manager. She had been managing my brand deals and investment structure for 3 years. She was sharp, direct, and she did not have patience for nonsense. One afternoon, we were on a video call going over a contract, and I mentioned the birthday dinner. I told her about the $200, about the group chat, about Patricia from the church group. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Reese, you keep protecting people who wouldn't protect you for 5 seconds. When are you going to stop?" I didn't have an answer. She leaned forward. "You're not hiding because you're humble. You're hiding because you're still trying to manage their feelings, and they are absolutely not doing the same for you." Loretta was the one who first said it plainly. Stop hiding. Not to perform your success, not to rub anything in anyone's face, but because the false story had gone on long enough, and it was time to let the real one exist. While Loretta and I were having that conversation, my mother was on the phone with a relative telling her she was worried about Reese's future and suggesting that maybe it was time for Reese to move back home, to stabilize. The word she used was stabilize, as if I was a situation that needed managing. Then Dana called me. She was warm about it, almost gentle, which was somehow the worst version. She said she'd been thinking about me and wondered whether I'd considered a career change, something more realistic. She suggested a few options: administrative work, maybe something in healthcare support. She meant well, she said. She just wanted to see me secure. She was talking about the industry I had quietly dominated for 4 years. I thanked her for the call. I kept my voice even. I hung up and sat with it for a long moment. Then I called Loretta. She picked up on the second ring. I told her what Dana had said. There was a pause. Then she said, "They're making decisions about your life based on a version of you that doesn't exist anymore. Time to introduce them to the real one." My mother's 60th birthday party was Dana's idea. She organized the whole thing: a venue, catering, a DJ, the full production. 60-something people. Colleagues from my mother's old job, friends from church, extended family from 3 states. It was a real event. I was invited 4 days before it happened. A text from Dana that said, "Hey, almost forgot. Mom's retirement party is Saturday. You should come if you can make it. If you can make it." I read it and smiled. I wore something simple. I didn't announce myself. I walked in, got a drink, found a seat near the back, and I waited. The speeches started after dinner. Dana took the microphone first. She was good at this. Warm, funny, the right amount of sentimental. She talked about my mother's strength, her sacrifices. Then she started talking about the family. She mentioned my sister's real estate portfolio. She mentioned Kendall's city contract. She talked about them like they were trophies. Her voice was warm, full, proud. Then she looked at me. "Reese, baby, we love you." She paused, a small smile. "But you haven't exactly made us proud financially." Instead, after she finished the list, she glanced toward my table and said, with a small, good-natured laugh, "And Reese is here too, supporting from the sidelines as always." Light laughter moved through the room. My mother smiled and didn't correct it. I let the moment land. Then I stood up. I walked to the front of the room slowly. I was calm. I was not nervous. I asked Dana if I could borrow the microphone for just a minute. She hesitated, just barely, and handed it over. I thanked everyone for being there. I said I wanted to take a moment to celebrate my mother. Then I pulled out my phone and asked if I could connect it to the display screen at the front of the room. Someone near the AV setup helped me do it. The screen lit up. I opened my content channel's analytics dashboard. The numbers filled the screen. 1.4 million subscribers. $3.2 million in brand revenue over the last 18 months. Dozens of brand partnerships, most of them household names. The room went still. Then I opened my banking app. $3,847,612. I let everyone read it. I gave it 10 full seconds of silence. The only sound was the low hum of the speakers and someone near the front of the room drawing in a slow breath. Then I looked at my mother. "You called me broke in front of this family," I said. My voice was even, not angry, just clear. I just wanted everyone to have the same information. That was when it happened. From a table near the left side of the room, my cousin Bria stood up halfway from her seat, staring at the screen. Her mouth opened. She looked at me. She looked back at the screen. Then she said, barely above a whisper, "Oh my God, that's her." Two other cousins turned. One of my mother's church friends leaned over to the woman beside her. Within 30 seconds, half the room was connecting what was on that screen to something they already knew. They had been watching my videos. They had shared them in their own group chats. Some of them had been quoting my content at family dinners for months without knowing they were quoting me. My mother's face was white. Dana moved toward the microphone, already shaping a sentence in her mouth. I held up one hand, gently, no drama, and I spoke first. "I'm not angry," I said. "I just stopped pretending." I set the microphone down on the table beside me. I walked back to my seat. I picked up my fork and finished my food. I did not leave early. That part mattered to me. I stayed through the rest of the evening, spoke to the people who approached me, accepted the quiet, stunned apologies with a simple nod, and when I was ready, I gathered my things and walked out the front door on my own terms. Not in anger, not in triumph, just done. My mother found me near the door before I left. She started talking fast, explaining, justifying, saying she hadn't meant for it to go so far, saying she always believed in me. Her voice cracked. I stood and listened to all of it. I didn't fill the silence when she ran out of words. I didn't tell her it was fine. I told her I loved her, and then I left. In the weeks that followed, the calls and texts came in differently, softer, more careful. Relatives who had laughed at that birthday dinner now sent check-in messages, asked genuine questions, used a different tone. I noticed it all. I didn't rush to rebuild anything. I was deliberate about who got access to my time and my energy. Some relationships I opened back up, slowly. Others I kept at a distance. Not out of bitterness, but because I had learned to tell the difference between people who valued me and people who were simply adjusting to new information. The morning after the retirement party, Loretta and I met for coffee. We didn't make a big deal of it. We sat across from each other, and she raised her cup, and I raised mine, and that was the whole celebration. Simple, quiet, exactly right. I thought about something on the drive home. For years, I had stayed silent because I was afraid of what would happen if they knew. I thought maybe the knowing would fix something. But sitting in my car that morning, I realized it wasn't about them seeing me clearly. I didn't need them to finally see me. I just needed to stop hiding so I could see myself clearly. Has someone in your family ever publicly underestimated you in front of people who were supposed to love you? I want to hear your story. Write it in the comments below. This community is full of people who have been building quietly while their families assumed the worst. You are not alone in this, and your story deserves to be told. Subscribe so you don't miss what comes next, and click hype to help this story reach every person who has ever sat at that table, knowing something nobody else at the table knew. Standing up for yourself when the people closest to you are the ones who hurt you, that is one of the hardest things there is. If you've been there, subscribe and become part of this community. Let me know this story helped by clicking hype and tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Thank you for being here.